North Carolina Central for football. It was really, really quiet in the stands. You know, I need to start working around with this when I'm around campus because it is really, really hot in that seat right now. The alumni groups, I almost didn't want to go on social media, but I had to post some stuff. And by the time I got there, it was like, oh my God, in fuego. And understandably, this team is 2 years removed from winning the Celebration Bowl. And there may not be another degrade in a team that fast. And so it's just unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And Coach Colzie said it. The standard is the standard. This isn't up to the standard. And you got to know that administration, fans, everybody else, they want to change in what they're seeing on Saturdays. This week is homecoming. Alcorn is coming in. You got an opportunity. In defense of FAMU for the last 2 weeks, last 2 games, I should say. They would have been better off if they had had a chance to play that Valley game in the middle and possibly get a win. But they got blown out by Eddie Robb and Alabama State and then come right back and get blown out by Trey Oliver. So those are the 2 games in a row that people see. Mm-hmm. If that game had actually happened against Valley and you got a chance to get a win, it softens it a little bit. But all they remember now is losing by almost 100 points in the last 2 games. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah, they went downhill fast, bro. I don't even want to call it the Colzie era. I want to call it the post-Simmons era.
and this is the problem that a lot of fans see and why they're frustrated. Over 6 years, Willie Simmons built a system. Mm-hmm. And the coaches that were in that system besides him were there, which is why he recommended putting Colzie there and the other coaches to continue what was done. Mm-hmm. They got the positions and did not continue what he did. So if anybody had known they weren't going to continue what he did, they never would have selected them as coaches. But and what they tried to do is unproven. What Simmons has done and did to develop that team, he's got to be scratching his head and kind of depressed that he built a system, built the way the program should be run, and it's been totally abandoned. It's no remnants of Willie Simmons at all in this team. 0.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what to tell you about that. That he what did the young kid say? He fumbled the bag?
Yeah, that's it.
He fumbled the bag. He had everything set up. So the thing that's interesting is you can see 2 different things. You can see what Coach Prime did at Jackson State, and then they brought in TC Taylor, and the success, the quality of football has stayed the same.
Yeah.
FAMU.
Let me say it's elevated because he won a championship.
Yeah. Okay, I can take that. Yeah. Then you have FAMU and Willie Simmons, now Colzie. Complete opposite.
Yeah, because TC took what Prime left and built, helped with better facilities and all of that. He took that and built this team that we have now that's just solid all the way around.
Yeah. That might run the table again.
Yeah. I think for me, it's because I've been there before. I've seen the WSSU. We had a lot of success. And it's usually 1 or 2 ways. Usually it will happen where the downgrade is quick, or it's either quick or fast or slow. But either way, sometimes you have to wonder how much is the system versus how much the person, because what Willie Simmons had when he was there was great because, he was there and it seems like people were there with him. I wouldn't say Prime left you guys nothing. I will say you guys got some nice Under Armour uniforms that the rest of us who got that BSN Under Armour, we don't got. Y'all got that Pure Connect.
Well, Prime left. Well, listen. Yeah, somebody said. Yeah, they gotta specify that because Prime left a brand new practice field there. He left a lot of upgrades in the locker room and everything. He fought for facilities for the student athletes. So saying he left nothing, that got to be more specific. He might not have left any players.
Yeah, I think
but he upgraded big time the infrastructure.
Yeah,
of Jackson.
I think a lot of the Jackson fans go on with he left TC with nothing, as in like players. Like a lot of the players hit the portal, a lot of the players left, a lot of the players that were recruited, and then that TC had to literally build it back up from the ground all the way back up. Like he had to rebuild his own recruiting because all the recruiters that he had left and decommitted and had went to other schools. I think whenever they phrased he left us with nothing, as in, yeah, he gave them great facilities in the locker rooms and the TV swag deal and stuff like that. But I think they're talking about strictly from like a football in-house standpoint, from like players to other stuff like that. Like TC had to build that. I think that's what they're referring to. I don't think
now this is TC. Now let me make sure I'm clarified. And I'm the first person to point out that this is TC Taylor's team. This is his era. This is everything. I agree with them as far as everything that came with Prime left with him almost. But TC has built this back up based off of the momentum of the things that were done during the time he was there, and that's the key right there. That is the key right there. Yeah. The consistency in leadership in the Department of Athletics at Jackson State University has been second to none. In my opinion, that man has been like the 80th of the year for the last 5 years, because what you've seen from their consistency starts at the administrative level, facilitating it so that your coaches have what they need to be successful. And you can see that he works hand in hand. The coaches say he was here in Tallahassee for the SWAC cross country championships. There was only like 2-3 ADs here for the cross country championship. Ashley Robinson was here. We had a conversation. I'm like, so that's the level of support that he gives to his student athletes from every sport. So that's why I give him high praise, and I agree with that statement that Ashley Robinson is absolutely the catalyst. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what I was getting to when you have these things and they play out again. When you have these things and they play out a certain way, when they play out when there's not a quick drop, it's usually because you have the infrastructure outside the coach, right? I mean, because coaches recruit coaches to come, that they have relationships that come to coach for them. And yeah, maybe for them, they're okay playing that role for a while. But when they leave, and then now there's somebody else that they've been side by side. And that's what I see I saw even as FAMU kind of dissipated. It's like, I felt like everybody that was there a lot of them were there because of Willie Simmons. Whereas you look at Jackson State, Ashley Robinson is the culture setter more so than even Deion Sanders was. And I think at FAMU, and Vaughn, it's been a revolving door in the AD situation. Oh yeah. So you're not like
we don't have an AD right now.
Right.
Let me comment for a second. Because I don't want to get too caught up.
I don't want to get too caught up in the Prime and everything. Because
I wasn't talking about that.
Right. I think that again, what you saw even with North Carolina A&T initially when Broadway left and Sam Washington was there, who Sam Washington was on his staff, but you still had the same administration. Now, people can say whatever they like to about the administration since then, but you see when you have that, it kind of softens that blow. But go ahead.
Let me say this one. I didn't want to belabor the point or get into it. The point I was getting at was the level of stability. Because when you talk about TC Clark, right? He was there before Deion got there, and I'm pretty sure he had a bigger hand in what was going on. So he was able to maintain some stability in some of those things. So I'm not getting into that. And then when you talk about an AD that's all over the place, FAMU had one and they got rid of him. But I'm not going to talk about that because I see them at volleyball, media days, and all that other thing. I'm not going to mention the name, but I think those things, and I'm not saying that as one is better than the other, but the level of consistency, the structure that's put in place, for the team to be successful, kind of what Steve was saying.
Oh, let me clarify something from the statements and
Yeah.
and the JSU right there. That statement. As a person who tries to raise money for my HBCU, I'm definitely never on planet Earth going to diminish, because the alumni do control with their giving. And so to the people from the outside that may not know this, what she just said, we just saw it go up during the time Prime was there. Had no idea how it got there, but let me applaud the JSU alumni for stepping up for those upgrades, because to me, that's the biggest point in any institution being successful. When you got buy-in, you got a good leader at AD, you got a good coach, and alumni buy-in. That's what we're seeing from Jackson State, and that's when you can sustain. Yeah, that's when you can sustain winning. So to all the JSU people, please forgive me. I said it came during Prime. I didn't say he did it, but please continue to give to Jackson State.
Yeah, no, I think definitely, like you said, it's a marriage, because you can have the best coach in the world, but if they don't have the tools that they need, they're not going to succeed. And you can have the best AD in the world, but if they have someone who's not handling it day to day, it's going to fall off there as well. So, Vaughn, I think you guys said something that's very crucial as we slide into this conversation about the hot seat, and we're going to talk about some of the coaches that are out there. But I think, as someone who just yesterday said, I think it's time for my school to move on, I know, you know what I mean? It is, our schools, we just saw James Franklin. For those who don't know, this might be breaking news for some people. We just saw James Franklin, the head coach at Penn State, get fired in the middle of the season.
Oh, he got fired?
Yeah. You were in the air. So
you lose to Northwestern, you get fired too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was coming, but I didn't know they was going to do it that fast.
Exactly.
I must have been in the air whenever they announced it.
Exactly. So, it's one of those things where every school, every program should have expectations. And again, we can't all just fire our coach in the middle of the season. Well, we could, but it's a little bit different from us. But they have money that folks will just come out and say, hey, we want a new guy. This is who we want. Let's do it. Now, that actually did happen at North Carolina A&T. All right. That did happen. So it can be done at HBCUs. Most of us are not doing it right now, but it can be done. So alumni are very important. We talked about it last week. We have talked about making sure that HBCU football, people see it as a product, because at the end of the day, the end user is your crowd. They are generally going to be your alumni and your supporters. So like Vaughn was saying, what they do with the 220 Club and so many other folks, a lot of people, I think a lot of times when people have had losing situations for so long, people feel like they're helpless or they're voiceless, or they just kind of go with it. And I think it's important for administrators to realize when you have people that are still engaged, because it can take a long time to build a fan base, but it could really not take a lot to lose them, especially nowadays. So with that said, we're talking about the hot seat. We talked about FAMU. If you guys saw my clip before, there's another SWAC program. Let's go a little bit further west, not all the way. There is Alcorn State. Cedric Thomas, who is also a second-year head coach. You're going to see a theme here. He is also, you don't even really got to go any further than our Facebook page when Tali posts the quotes when he posts the quotes for each of the coaches. Man, there were some seasoned sisters that were letting you know that they were ready for Brother Thomas to get up out the paint. And, this is a year and a half. And it's another, and, they often say, whether people like this book or people hate this book, it's very controversial, but I'm going to put it out there, 50 laws of power or 48 laws of power. So one of them is don't follow behind a great man. And we saw Willie Simmons, Colzie's behind him. We saw, Alcorn State, we know that situation. Now, you know, what they've done, not only with Fred McNair, but also Hobson, even before that as well. They are, you know, people don't often think of them when they think of the FAMUs, they think of the Gramblings or the Southern, but Alcorn State has had a lot of success, and they're not playing with them. I mean, they gotta win the other day because they played a school that I couldn't pick out of a lineup, but you know, he's there. Any thoughts on Alcorn State? Should he be on the hot seat? They just got their first win last year. They fell below expectations. It was his first year. Should he be on the hot seat in year two? Should any coach be on the hot seat in year two?
Well, like you said, it's the problem is he's starting behind a great fan base. I mean, a great, you know, McNair and a winning football culture. And he hasn't connected with the fan base like some of these other coaches have done. And so now he's sitting in a situation where they, you know, they feel like the bread is a little spoiled. Plus, those blowout losses give a perception, you know what I mean? And all those things contribute to where whether they can fire him or not, they may be planning on getting him out of there, you know, until he makes some changes.
And then, Steve, just piggybacking off what Kobe said, it's like, what does it look like? Does it look like there's a chance that this system could actually work? Like, if it looked like it's only going worse, the Rattlers look worse this year than they did last year. So it's going in the wrong direction. You can't get behind something that's going in the wrong direction. And I talked to Reggie Theus when I was in Daytona a couple of weeks ago. I was like, man, you know, a lot of people in Bethune wanted Raymond Woody gone. He said Bethune was on the edge, the very edge of having level 2 APR issues. Now that football team has a 3.2 and they got a 980 out of 1,000. There are certain elements. So now with that happening, Theus was a little more patient with the football side coming along, because we all know that if you don't have that academic side, there is no football side. You know, there is no side. And so
Talk to them. They want to know about the APR. Explain that APR rating.
APR is your academic progress rate, and there's a rating based on 1,000. And the NCAA annually rates the teams, and I think it's a 952 that you have to have to be fully compliant. And so if your team falls below that, the first thing, like the phase that FAMU is in, they lose a day of practice, and that day has to be spent in study hall. If you get to level 2, they cancel your spring, get like 10% scholarship reductions. In level 3, they might cancel your season. I can't even remember what all goes into level 3. You just get on this big suspension. And so
you get the postseason ban and
postseason. Yeah. It's lots of levels of that. So academic progress rate. So Raymond Woody walked in, they were one step away from level 2 APR. Now they are exceeding tremendously. I guess that's one of the highest APRs probably in Division 1. And so that's why, in the grand scheme of things, that's why the athletic directors are so important, to understand the grand scheme of things, to keeping it going. Yes, you want to win, but if you don't get out of that, that APR is something serious, and it's a big part of the NCAA right now. So if you wonder why they stuck with Woody when they were only winning 2 games a year, 3 games a year, because he was rising that APR. Now the team is starting to play well. They're exciting. They got, like I say, big win over Southern. That's something to look forward to, and that's something they can build off of.
Yeah. And that speaks to kind of what you're talking to, because combining what you and Steve said earlier, right? Alcorn is used to reloading, not rebuilding. And so they're expecting them to contend and not construct a new program, right? And he has to reconstruct a new program. But we know perception is reality, right? and people, whatever they perceive is how they're going to feel.
a house of cards will always fall down eventually. It will. You know, it can look good on the outside, but a house of cards is always going to fall down. I'll ask you this, Vaughn, and then we'll move on. You've seen your share of coaching changes, your share of, coaching hot seats. How would you rate the fire right now? The smoke, is there more smoke than fire right now? Again, like you said, I don't know there's no AD, so I guess that would actually have to come from the president if there were to be a change.
It doesn't. That's why it doesn't excite me about firing Colzie, because what's going to be his support? What's going to be the next coach's support system? A coach needs a support system. TC Taylor doesn't have to worry about anything on game day is except coaching his team. Everything is taken care of by the athletic director. Trey Oliver, all he has to worry about is coaching. Raymond Woody, all he has to do is worry about coaching. But with the uncertainty at the athletic director spot, and for the extended time that has happened, that's pretty tough for a coach to even focus. Who does he go to if he needs something that can make a decision? And I don't know if you all are aware. So who was serving as interim left. He's going to Alabama A&M. So now a third person is in that seat in the last couple of months. That's instability at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. He's you ever see those guys out there in a tornado and it's like they just got to hold on to the pole and hold on for dear life? That's what it seems like is going on. But hey, FAMU, they want to win, and I know just from watching, it's like they went through that period of time where they weren't good and it was really hard, and then you get good again. It's like, you want to hold on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting. And we talked about blowouts and how they can make it worse. Well, somebody did get blown out. Somebody else got blown out in Florida yesterday too. And that would be Southern University. As we've seen, oh God, man, for a long time, Dawson Odoms was the mainstay there. After they went through their transition period when Pete Richardson left, and people weren't too excited about old Dawson Odoms. He's kind of low key. He's funny, like in his own way, but people weren't too excited about him. So he wanted a longer deal. The current athletic director, HGb&x, did not give him, was not willing to give him that longer deal, and he bounced for Norfolk State. We see how that worked out. It opened up the era for Michael Vick. So it's kind of crazy how this thing comes around. But anyway, they want, a lot of people wanted Eric Dooley, who was another assistant under Pete Richardson. They got him. He was there for a year and a half, and the bottom fell out there. And yeah, so now we got Terrence Graves, a longtime assistant, my fellow WSSU Ram as well. But he's been a long-time assistant down there in the SWAC. He finally got his chance last year. He went 8-4. People weren't. I got friends in Southern. People weren't crazy about Terrence Graves as their guy. They are very particular, as they should be, about who's going to be their head coach. Part of being a head coach at a football program is not only the X's and O's, it's not only managing the program, but when you talk about certain schools, it's also, do the alumni believe in you? Does Jaguar Nation, does Rattler Nation, do they believe in you? Do they support you? Because if they think you're their guy, they're going to give you a little bit of grace. But when you're not their guy, you never were their guy anyway. As soon as it starts to fall off, everything you do, everything that goes wrong at that university is your fault. When they can't get in the gate, it's that damn coach. If his stuff was right, then they would be letting people in the gate. Trust me, I know. So Terrence Graves finds himself in this situation also in year 2. They are one shoestring win away from Valley from being winless. And they might want my Ram brothers. He might be cooked in some gumbo soon if they don't get some wins. Any thoughts on that? In Southern, is there anything redeemable there, or are we just kind of also just waiting around? The difference there versus FAMU and Alcorn State is that they have had the same AD for the better part of a decade, and he's been able to bring in. This is now the second coach that he's brought in since Dawson Odoms. You had an interim for a year, but it's the second coach he's brought in there. And it gets to the other part. How much of this comes down to being on the athletic directors too? We talk about the coaches on the hot seat. Sometimes how many times can an athletic director get a coach wrong in football before it's time for them to go to?
And the question people have, and I want to ask y'all, is Graves saved by the Bayou Classic this year? He wins the Bayou Classic. Does that save him for another year?
No, because Grambling stinks.
They never wanted him as their head. I mean, in general, he just was never their guy. He was never their guy. He went 8-4 last year. He went 8-4 last year. He went to the championship game. People were like, "Oh, yeah, we're in the championship game." But they haven't. And again, I was telling a friend that went to Southern this. I was like, "Man, it's been a long time since we won, but man, y'all haven't won since 2012. You know what I mean? Like 2013. Like that was HBCU game day was in its infancy at that point. So there was it's like, man, that's a long time. You talking about a dozen years, Vaughn? You've seen this. You talk about a dozen years for a program that has a storied history, both all time and recently. That feels like an eternity, and I'm sure that's got to feel like an eternity to them too. And in the way they've just been getting smacked from the MEAC swag, again hanging on a valley. We saw what happened when they looked like they might have a fat fighting chance, and then Jackson State just turned on the switch. And then yesterday they got beat with a switch by Bethune-Cookman. So,
yeah. But it is kind of where it's at. But But think about this: who's on the worst hot seat, right? Him or Grambling's coach? Was it Mickey Joseph?
Now that's another school that will fire you. Interestingly enough, their athletic director, Dr. Travian Scott, he is a Southern alumnus as well. He's a Southern alumnus. He was hired as the AD a couple years back, and he is the one that brought in Hugh Jackson. And we remember they got rid of Hugh Jackson in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And it looked like he was actually turning a corner in his second year, and they still fired him. So now you bring in Mickey Joseph, another guy with FBS Power 5 experience, another HBCU guy. And last year wasn't great, and this year it's even worse. So, again, another second-year coach. At some point, guys, we got to start looking at these athletic directors and be like, okay, what's the common denominator here? It's you. I mean, what's not clicking?
You know what I think is another problem among coaches is laziness, straight laziness. The transfer portal has got coaches recruiting from behind their desk, as opposed to going out and finding these high school kids that can come in and play, that don't have whatever baggage some transfer portal kid has that's coming into your program. You have to have a balance, and a lot of teams now are like 75, 80%, 90% transfer portal kids, as opposed to going and building your program, a la Trey Oliver, builds from high school players, and they have continuity, and they stay there for a while. I'll never forget let me just look back last week on it. It's a different level, but the comparison. Number 3 and number 4 for the University of Miami, those defensive ends. They transferred to University of Miami. University of Miami was either 5-6 or 6-5, but they believed in the program. 3 years later, they both like first-round draft picks for the NFL. They were able to grow. They were nurtured by the University of Miami, and Miami built them up and developed them as athletes. They took the time to do that. So many of our coaches are lazy, and they will not develop kids because that's developing your future. They try to make a quick fix and go find all these kids in the portal, and just because they come from a school that is a Power 5 school or whatever, those kids a lot of time come with baggage. So I say a lot of what is going on with these coaches that are not as successful is laziness, because they're lazy. They're recruiting behind their desk in the portal as opposed to going out to these high school games like we used to do. Finding the kids that you see with your eyes can help your program in the future and developing them.
Vaughn, you hit it right, and like you spoke that right up my alley, because I was going to say the same exact thing. That's the problem with a lot of these coaches nowadays. They are failing these kids at the developmental process of their game. Like, these coaches don't know how to develop teams, and like you said, with develop players, and like you said, with North Carolina Central, they build it from the ground up. They go and recruit high school players. That's why that program has been good with Trey Oliver in the past couple of years. That's why it's been good, because Trey Oliver knows how to develop his team. You can see it all the time with these teams. Look at all the teams that we're questioning about the hot seat. Look at where all their main players come from.
Yeah.
Southern, Trey Ollie. Look at the rest of the players that's looking on a hot seat. I mean, look at the rest of the coaches that are on the hot seat. FAMU, where their players come from? Transfer portal. It's not a lot. There's not a lot of growing and development going on because these coaches. But at the same time, not to say that I understand the coaches, but I kind of get the point of view that they're coming from, because it's like, we're talking about coaches in the hot seat, and it's only in their year 2. Like, yeah, it's not looking good, but it's like, it's only year 2. So it's like, do they really have time to develop the players? They got to win now. So it's like, I do kind of understand some of the coaches from some type of perspective, but it's like, okay, now how long is enough? Because, like, for example, A&T with Coach Gibbs, they think they got their guy. Even though they're still not winning games, I'm pretty sure Gibbs is good for the next 2-3 years. Pretty sure he's good. And within that, like, you can see, like you said, Vaughn, like, if we can see a little bit of a change, and people, I feel like A&T is starting to see a little bit. Like, they're not getting blown out. Like, I mean, yeah, they still got blown out to Central. They lost a rivalry game by a big game, but they're still competing in football games. They understand, and me and Steve has been out to multiple games. That team is willing to lay it all out on the line. The players are willing to go to war behind Gibbs. So, Vaughn, I think you hit it right on the nail. Like, a lot of these coaches are scared, and they just don't have the time to actually develop the kids. That they're just trying to go get a quick fix in the portal. And I think that's really just the main problem.